A quiet neighborhood afternoon suddenly turned into chaos when police officers surrounded a 72-year-old woman outside her own home. Neighbors watched in shock as she was forced against a police car, accused of a crime she didn't commit. She kept telling them one thing: "This is my house." But no one listened. Bruised, humiliated, and trembling, the elderly woman made a single phone call. Not to a lawyer, not to a friend, but to her son. What the officers didn't know was that her son wasn't ordinary. He was a Delta Force commander. Within minutes, federal agents arrived. Cameras started rolling, and the situation that began as a simple misunderstanding turned into a national investigation. This is a story about power, dignity, and the moment. The sound of sirens shattered the quiet afternoon. Neighbors stepped onto their porches. Curtains moved. Phones came out. And on Maplewood Street, a peaceful neighborhood where nothing ever happened, an elderly woman stood trembling beside a police cruiser. Completely surrounded, her name was Mary Jackson, 72 years old, a retired school librarian, and at that moment, treated like a dangerous criminal. "Ma'am, put your hands where I can see them," one officer barked. Mary blinked, confused. I already told you," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I live here." The officer didn't listen. Officer Grant Miller, tall, impatient, and already irritated, grabbed her wrist roughly. "You're matching the description," he snapped. Mary winced. "That hurts. Please!" Across the street, a teenager started recording. Another neighbor whispered, "What's going on?" Nobody understood how things escalated so quickly. Just 15 minutes earlier, Mary had been watering the small garden outside her home. Sunlight warmed her face. Birds chirped. It was peaceful, the kind of calm she had earned after decades of hard work. Her husband had passed away years ago. Her only son rarely visited because of his demanding career. Still, Mary never complained. She believed kindness always returned. That belief was about to be tested. A police car suddenly pulled. Up fast. Then another. Doors slammed. Officers approached with urgency. "Ma'am," one shouted, "step away from the house." Mary turned, startled. "Yes? Is something wrong?" "We received a call about a suspicious person attempting to break into this property." Mary laughed nervously. "Oh dear, that must be a mistake. This is my home." She pointed toward the front door. But Officer Miller wasn't interested in explanations. "ID." Mary hesitated. "It's inside." "I was gardening." That was enough to trigger suspicion. Miller exchanged a look with his partner. Convenient. Excuse? At least that's what he assumed. "Turn around," Miller ordered. Mary froze. "I don't understand." "Why? Turn around." His voice grew louder. Neighbors watched now. Phones recording. Mary slowly obeyed, confused and embarrassed. As Miller grabbed her arms to place handcuffs, she gasped. "I haven't done anything. Stop resisting." "I'm not resisting." But perception had already replaced reality. The officer pushed her harder than necessary. Her balance failed. She stumbled forward, falling onto one knee on the pavement. A collective gasp echoed down the street. "Hey, she's old!" someone shouted. Mary's hands trembled. Pain shot through her leg. Tears filled her eyes, not just from pain, but humiliation. She had spent her life teaching children respect. Now she was treated like a threat in front of her own neighbors. "Officer." Miller pulled her up roughly again. Mary cried out, "Please, slow down. I have arthritis." Instead of calming the situation, Miller interpreted her movement as resistance. He forced her against the patrol car, too hard. Her shoulder slammed into the metal. The teenager recording whispered, "Yo, this is bad." Another officer looked, uneasy, but stayed silent. Authority had momentum now, and momentum rarely stops itself. Mary's breathing grew heavy. I need to sit. Please. You'll sit when we say, Miller replied coldly. That was when fear replaced confusion. Mary realized something terrifying. No one here believed her. Call my son, she said weakly. Miller rolled his eyes. Everyone says that. No. Please, just let me call him. What's he gonna do? Mary hesitated. She rarely spoke about her son's work. He insisted on privacy. But desperation changes rules. He works for the military. The officers exchanged amused looks. Yeah, sure. Mary swallowed. Her hands shook as she reached slowly into her pocket. Permission to get my phone? Miller nodded impatiently. Make it quick. Her fingers trembled, dialing the number she knew by heart. It rang once, twice. Then a calm voice answered. Mom? Relief flooded her face instantly. Daniel, I need help. His tone changed immediately. What happened? Mary's voice cracked. The police? They think I broke into my own house. Silence. Then, are you safe? Before she could answer, Miller grabbed the phone. That's enough. But Daniel had already heard the fear in his mother's voice, and Daniel Jackson was not an ordinary son. Thousands of miles away, inside a secure military operations facility, a man stood motionless after the call disconnected. Colonel Daniel Jackson, Delta Force Commander, decorated soldier, a man trained to remain calm under gunfire. But hearing his mother cry, that was different. Very different. He turned slowly toward his team. I need a secure line. Now! His voice carried a quiet authority that made everyone move instantly. Within minutes, calls began traveling through channels most civilians never knew existed. Local command structures, federal oversight, military liaison offices. Questions started appearing faster than answers, and on Maplewood Street. The officers had no idea what storm they had just awakened. Mary sat on the curb now, breathing unevenly. Her shoulder throbbed. Neighbors whispered louder. Someone said, She's lived here 20 years. Another added, This doesn't look right. Officer Miller grew irritated by the attention. Everyone move along. But cameras stayed up, because something felt wrong. Deeply wrong. Mary stared at the ground quietly. She didn't cry anymore. She just waited, because she knew one thing. Her son always kept his promises, and he had just said 5 words before hanging. Up, I'm handling this right now. 5 minutes later, Miller's radio crackled. Dispatch sounded unusually tense. Unit 24, confirm status. Routine stop, Miller replied. Pause. Then, stand by for supervisory contact. He frowned. That was odd. Then another message came, this time sharper. Do not leave location. The officers exchanged confused looks. A black SUV turned onto the street moments later, unmarked, government plates, and suddenly, the situation stopped being routine. The black SUV stopped slowly at the edge of Maplewood Street. Its engine hummed quietly, but the atmosphere around it felt heavy, like the air before a storm. Officer Miller frowned. Who called supervision? This fast? He muttered. The passenger door opened. A man stepped out wearing a dark suit, sunglasses, and an earpiece. He wasn't local police. He didn't look confused or rushed. He looked informed. Mary watched carefully from the curb, still holding her aching shoulder. The man walked directly toward the officers. Who is in charge here? His voice was calm but carried authority. I am, Miller replied defensively. Officer, Grant Miller, what's this about? The man pulled out a badge, not police. Federal Miller's posture shifted immediately. I'm Special Agent Harris, the man said. We received a priority inquiry regarding this incident. A federal inquiry? Miller asked. Over a trespassing call? Agent Harris didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Mary. Ma'am, are you Mary Jackson? Yes, she said softly. His expression softened slightly. "Are you injured?" Before she could respond, a second vehicle arrived. Then, another. Neighbors began whispering louder. "This is getting serious." Phones recorded everything. Miller's confidence began slipping. "What exactly is happening?" he demanded. Agent Harris finally spoke. "Your detainee made a phone call." "So?" Harris looked directly at him. "To Colonel Daniel Jackson." Silence. The name meant nothing to Miller, but the tone did. "And?" Miller asked. Harris adjusted. "His jacket. Delta Force Command." The words landed like thunder. Within minutes, a police supervisor arrived, visibly nervous. He pulled Miller aside. "What did you do?" "Nothing. Suspicious person call." She resisted. The supervisor glanced toward Mary, an elderly woman surrounded by federal personnel. "She lives here," the supervisor whispered angrily. "Dispatch confirmed property ownership 10 minutes ago." Miller's stomach dropped. "What? And now the Department of Defense is asking questions." Across the street, neighbors watched as paramedics gently examined Mary's shoulder. Bruising had already formed. Agent Harris documented everything. Every word, every movement, every witness. The teenager who recorded the arrest stepped forward. "I filmed the whole thing," he said. Harris nodded. "I'll need that video." Miller suddenly realized the situation was no longer about control. It was about accountability. Inside a military aircraft cutting through the sky, Colonel Daniel Jackson sat silently. His teammates knew better than to speak. Daniel wasn't angry. In the loud way, he was calm. Dangerously calm. He replayed his mother's trembling voice again and again. She had raised him alone after his father died, worked 2 jobs, never complained, and now she had been hurt in front of strangers. He closed. His eyes. "ETA?" he asked. 2 hours, sir." Daniel nodded once. That was enough. Back on Maplewood Street, the atmosphere had completely changed. Officers who once stood confidently now avoided cameras. Internal affairs arrived. Body cameras were collected immediately. Agent Harris spoke quietly. With witnesses, one neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, said firmly, "She told them she lived there. They didn't listen." Another added, "They pushed her hard. She wasn't resisting." The video confirmed it. Mary stumbling, Mary pleading, Mary being forced against the car. The footage spread quickly online. Within hours, hashtags began trending locally. "Elderly woman assaulted by police." News vans appeared. Reporters spoke into cameras just feet away. Miller watched helplessly. The narrative had escaped his control. Investigators traced the original 911 call. A new neighbor had reported a suspicious elderly woman near the house. The caller admitted they assumed she didn't belong in the neighborhood. Assumed. That single word changed everything. Bias had started the chain reaction. Poor judgment had escalated it, and now consequences were coming. A reporter gently asked Mary, "Are
you angry?"
She paused. "No," she said quietly. "Just disappointed." Her dignity stunned everyone watching. "I taught children for 40 years, she continued. "I always believed respect solves problems faster than force." The clip went viral. Within hours, millions watched. Millions sided with her. The military vehicle stopped near the scene just before sunset. Colonel Daniel Jackson stepped out, tall, composed, controlled. He wore civilian clothes, but authority followed him like gravity. The crowd fell silent. Mary saw him first, her eyes filled with tears. "Danny." He walked quickly to her, kneeling beside her chair. "Mom, are you okay?" She smiled weakly. "I am now." He examined her bruised shoulder carefully. His jaw tightened, the only sign of anger. He stood and turned toward the officers. No shouting. No threats. Just presence. "Who initiated physical force?" No one answered immediately. Finally, Miller stepped forward. "I did." Daniel studied him quietly. "Did my mother threaten you?" "No." "Attempt to flee?" No. Possess a weapon? No. Each answer made the silence heavier. Daniel nodded slowly. I spent 20 years defending this country, he said calmly, including the freedoms that protect how you do your job. He paused. But authority without judgment becomes harm. The words were calm, but devastating. Internal affairs officers exchanged looks. They already knew disciplinary action was inevitable. Within days, Officer Miller was suspended pending investigation. 2 officers placed on administrative leave. Department issued public apology. City launched civil rights. Review lawyers contacted Mary. She didn't want revenge. She wanted change. Body camera training policies were rewritten. De-escalation programs expanded. Bias training mandated. One moment on one street began reshaping an entire department. Weeks later, Mary returned home. Her garden waited for her. Neighbors greeted her warmly now, many apologizing for not speaking sooner. The teenager who filmed the incident visited. Your story helped people, he told her. Mary smiled gently. Then something good came from pain. A community meeting was held at the local school. Police officers attended. Residents spoke openly. Understanding slowly replaced tension. Colonel Daniel sat quietly in the back while his mother spoke at the podium. I don't want people to fear police, she said. I want people to trust them. Her words earned a standing ovation. Not because she demanded justice, but because she chose dignity. That evening, Daniel sat with his mother on the porch. You didn't have to come, she told him. He smiled. I always will. She squeezed his hand. You protect the country, she said softly. But remember, kindness protects people too. Daniel nodded. It was the simplest lesson, and the strongest. Sometimes power doesn't arrive with sirens or uniforms. Sometimes it arrives as truth. One phone call didn't change the world because of rank or authority. It changed the world because someone refused to stay silent when dignity was taken away. And in the end, respect proved stronger than force. If this story moved you, take 1 second to like this video and share it with someone who believes respect should never depend on age, appearance, or assumptions. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that reveal truth, justice, and unforgettable moments. And remember, sometimes the strongest power isn't authority. It's dignity. See you in the next story.